Our town, our TV. Amherst City Cable.
Just one more couple questions. We're under the no pickup right now inadvertently because the salary reduction is the one that we want to go with.
Right.
Both of those have zero cost to the employer. I mean, if they're done in accordance with that resolution. If we do not pass this resolution right now, because it seems like I guess I'm concerned about supporting this just simply because I think we need to have some questions answered. Is there any reason that you cannot do this right now under the currently in effect resolution R0406? Can you, I mean, is there any reason why you can't start doing it like right now?
I'm assuming not. I would have to let the employees know that we're going to start doing this, but
you wouldn't have to otherwise?
I would have to either way.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying is I would have to let them know, and they, you know, some of these employees may come back and go, oh, how, why? And I would rather have something in my hand to say, here's why. And like I said, when they called Gwen, you know, she even made a note. They said that section 2 that the law director pointed out is very ambiguous, and she made a note that says we need to amend it to include all classes of employees. Because it does look like we're segmenting out, and it doesn't look like we're including the bargaining, even though it is in the contracts. I mean, we can explain that and say it's in the contracts, but according to the way the resolution is written, and of course, obviously, we haven't been following it since its inception in '04.
Mr. Van Truin.
My apologies if any of my questions are ignorant, because this makes me feel very dumb, to be frank. There's a lot here that I don't understand, and I apologize. We keep talking about this 2004 ordinance should have been followed for the past 12 years. We keep talking about this ambiguous they. Who made a mistake here? Who should have been following it? Was it the mayor? Was it?
No, it was obviously the clerks in my office.
So why was the mistake made for 12 years? Just so
it's very ambiguous, because if you look on A1516, they even sent us, PERS even sent us a letter back in 2008 saying that everything looked good.
Okay.
And you know, as I said, they called us a couple months ago and said that the IRS is now coming through and going through all their withholdings and how they do it at PERS, and PERS is circling back and calling cities that have had these outstanding.
Is there a specific employee who was in charge of making sure this happened, or I mean?
Through the years, it's been, you know, my clerk. I don't know who Diane's clerk was prior to, who did the payroll, and whoever she trained, it went on down through the line.
Let's have Mr. Law Director answer your address.
I just want to address Mr. Van Truren's question. Actually, the ordinance has been followed. The ordinance in place talks about the non-bargaining unit employees and how they would be treated. The bargaining unit employees were treated correctly. There's a sliver of individuals not covered by this ordinance, whether or not they had their taxes or their overs and taxes properly withheld. I don't know. That's something that's for that end. But the law, the ordinance has been followed correctly. Okay, it actually has been. This is the IRS or PERS, when they look at this, and you know, the people on the clubs, when they look at things like this, they say, well, it just says non-bargaining. What does that mean? Well, it means non-bargaining.
So no mistakes were made.
Correct. This was followed. This was actually followed. IRS regulations and overs regulations apparently were small sliver us, basically. Apparently the withholding wasn't done correctly. So I would caution everybody when you say that our ordinances were not followed. They were followed.
If I may, along with, yeah, if I can follow Mr. The law director, nobody in the clerk's office made a mistake. I mean, I know that you're asking questions and it led to maybe that assumption, but nobody made any mistakes. They were doing their job correctly. That is why we are correcting the ordinance, to allow that opportunity for non-bargaining employees to have their contributions be pre-tax. So they see a couple bucks extra in their paycheck as opposed to seeing it at the end of the year when they file their taxes. Nobody did anything wrong. So, other than the fact the ordinance wasn't probably implemented correctly. But the clerk's office did.
Just to clarify, I'm not suggesting anyone did anything wrong. I'm trying to understand when we say it wasn't followed. This was before my time here on council. I'm trying to get a better understanding of how to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And to your point, I guess maybe I'm getting this confused. This ordinance was correctly followed by your department.
Absolutely.
Correct, but like I said, Ohio PERS came through, IRS and PERS looked at our resolution and said, this section needs to be more inclusive rather than segmenting it out.
They questioned it because it appeared to be exclusive versus all-inclusive.
Correct.
So who was actually left out?
Everyone. What they're saying is they would rather have it describe bargaining, non-bargaining, all employees of the city are pre-tax, rather than have it say non-bargaining.
Well, it seems to me that the non-bargaining employees that this was specifically addressed to were the ones that were actually left off.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Miller.
I just, I know we got this motion on the floor, and I think there's no need to chase people or try to uncover who's the fault or whatever. I think that this is being done right. Our job as council is to clean up legislation when it's pointed out. It's been pointed out now by OPERS. It's been pointed out by the law director, assistant law director, and many times even Mr. Ramsey has found some things in the treasurer's office that he'd like us to help fix. And I think let's get this thing fixed. I don't think it's something that we need to move forward with. I like giving our auditor the ability to say, here, legislation is why we're changing your withholding, and not just arbitrarily. So with that, once again, support our treasurer's interpretation of the taxing and the auditor's opinion as to let's get this legislation through.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Winarski.
I guess my only question is, has everyone's questions been answered? I'm serious when I ask that, because there's like, we're going to follow up with this, I'm not sure where we stand right now. Has everyone's questions been answered? That's my question.
Vote for.
I guess the big concern that, following on with that, is that Mr. Auditor, you said there's really no reason why we can't implement this in accordance with the discussions with the IRS and OPERS. And we have a number of questions, and I guess my concern is I think that I would be a lot more comfortable if we table this, and you can go ahead and implement it, and let's get some of these questions answered. I think that's my thought. Go ahead, Mr.
That was my only question. I mean, is it a matter of tabling it, or is it something we create a list and we revisit at the next council meeting? I guess I'm going to, what do you guys think? I mean,
we have a motion on the floor, point of order. We have a motion on the floor, and we have to
I'm asking a question.
move on that.
I won't pretend to say that I completely understand this yet. I know that makes me sound ignorant, but I'd like some more time to understand it a little bit better, I'll be honest with you, in good conscience in order to... That's all I have to say.
Are there any additional comments? The recommendation is that we send it to council, and then we can always send it back to committee.
And then
You have 6 weeks if you don't want to suspend the rules.
I think we need to probably consider doing that, not suspending rules, so we can get some. With that, yeah, I could support that. I can support that because we're going to have to get some additional information. Are there any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Bukovac.
Absolutely.
Mr. Goodell.
Yes.
Mr. Janney.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Van Truen.
Yes.
Mr. Winarski.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes to take this to the floor of council. The next item is the companion legislation, which is A15-17, and that is to adopt the no OPERS withholding policy. I would suggest that we consider in our discussions doing the same thing for this piece of legislation. However, Mr. Bukovac.
I was going to make a motion to send A15-17 to the floor of council.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Second, please.
Okay, are there any questions that need to be addressed that haven't been addressed? Okay, seeing none. Roll call vote. Mr. Bukovac.
Yes.
Mr. Goodell.
Yes.
Mr. Janney.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Van Truen.
Yes.
Mr. Winarski.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes to take this to the floor of council. 7-0. And those are the two items that I had tonight. Mr. Bukovac.
Make a motion to adjourn. Adjourn. Thank you. Sure.
And Mr. Goodell.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned at 7:46 p.m. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Utilities Committee to order at 7:49. We have an attendance taken the first finance meeting. We'll use that. And I believe absent this meeting will be our Assistant Civil Law Director, Frank Carlson, and in place would be Law Director Cora. With that being said, we have A-15-15 submitted by Safety Service Director Mark Costello, an authorization to enter into agreement with FiberTech for pole attachments of aerial cables, antennas, transceivers, amplifiers, equipment, wires, and associated hardware. With that, I guess we'll turn it immediately over to our Law Director. Mr. Costello, you're fine with that?
Actually, this is Mark's contract. If there's any questions pertaining to the contract itself.
All right, our Safety Service Director, Mr. Costello, will go ahead and inform us, if you would, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Last year, Council approved a pole attachment agreement with FiberTech, and there was a fee attachment, some rules and regulations along with it shortly, and that was 140-some poles, plus or minus some. Right after that agreement, we got a newer agreement that Amp Ohio had worked on, which has a lot more protections. It's been a lot more foolproof. It's been used. Am I right? With Amp Ohio. And Tony and I got a hold of that, and we worked on it together to customize it for our city. Since then, FiberTech has come and wants to attach a few more poles, and we want to go into an agreement to use this newer pole attachment agreement, which has a better fee schedule. It escalates every year. It has a little more protection. If we want to move a pole, it describes their attachments a little bit better. And this is more of a, not necessarily, it's more of a generic agreement that would pertain to FiberTech itself and any pole within the city. And they would have to be approved with each individual project with the Safety Service Director. So with that, if you have any more questions, I can do my best to answer them.
We'll go ahead and field questions from Council. Councilman Bukovac.
Thank you, Chairman. I have, you mentioned just now there's some more additional protections that you found from the Amp Ohio example. Can you give me some samples of what those protections would be?
The biggest one was if for some reason we needed to move a pole, it has a lot more protections as far as the requirements of FiberTech to get their equipment either moved or replaced. The pole agreement really didn't have anything talked about if we had to relocate one of our poles or remove one of our poles. So that's probably the biggest portion Tony might have.
Well, and I don't know if I would phrase it as protection. I just like this contract better. I mean, Amplify, we trust Amplify, or at least I do. There are consultants when it comes to our utilities. The agreement itself is a little more detailed in my opinion. And Mark and I kind of fashioned some of the language to apply to the future possibly. In fact, if there's any abilities for franchise agreements, we have it in there that we can seek the franchise agreements. We kind of tightened it up on our termination, if I'm not mistaken. It's a multi-page document. It's 19 pages. We went through the whole contract together and discussed some of the parameters which differ from the first agreement. I think this is a better contract altogether, and it's been submitted to FiberTech. Their council's looking at it. We'll be providing you with their input. And we should hear from them fairly soon, probably sometime this week.
Some of the changes from the previous, you mentioned fee schedule. Can you give me an example of how that's going to be better for the city?
The other fee schedule, it's in the back. The other pole attachment was $5 per pole, perpetuity. This one starts at $8.54, and pretty much, I haven't done the math, it escalates through 2018. I think it's generally about 2% per year, okay, even after that.
And typically for these contracts, we have poles that are people running their lines on our property. At the end of the contract, what happens if FiberTech no longer wants to use that fiber? At the end of 2018, escalation goes to 2%. Maybe they're not around anymore. Maybe they are. Maybe they don't want to use that. What happens to that property that they hang on our poles?
There's rules in there that says they've got so many days if they abandon it to remove their equipment.
Otherwise, it becomes our property?
Yes.
Okay. What is this? When we previously approved the FiberTech agreement last year, we had some debate and discussion on the equipment and whether or not what we were actually doing in our legislation. And it was made explicitly to us that we were just voting and considering an ordinance to allow just fiber on there. We weren't talking about any type of equipment and all that. And then part of the debate was, what is this equipment going to be used for? So now in this ordinance here, we're talking about specifically equipment. What are they doing?
This last 37 poles, they're specifically asking for fiber, no antennas. And on here, there's a section that talks line number 24 on the first appendix, the first table of contents, 2.11 or 2.12 talks about pole mounted antennas. And on that page in the back, it says if there should be language about pole mounted antennas, it should be attached here. And if you notice, there's nothing attached. Okay. So this one agreement really, in my opinion, wouldn't pertain to antennas. Where the other one, there was small wording in there, even though the intention might not have been to attach them. They ended up in there somewhere.
So this agreement. I'm sorry.
Tony might be able to explain this one.
What it comes down to is, and Mark knows this is forgetting, the original contract says and appurtenances. So the appurtenances would include, unfortunately, the antennas. And FiberTech's going to have to give us a laundry list of what they want to put on our poles. And that's not, you're right, it's not listed, and there should be an amendment, or should be an addendum or some sort of exhibit explaining to us what we're putting on our poles. Their attitude in the previous agreement was, and which I didn't like, was that you pass this once and basically we submit to the city and to the safety service director whatever we want to submit to him, he gets to approve it. Well, I think, you know, I've gone back and forth on this, but I think I'd like to have a little more control over what we're allowing them to put on the poles. Having said that, the big caveat that there's codes of federal regulations which kind of require us to approve such improvements on our poles or such agreements. We can't just say you can't do this. You can't come into our city and improve our communications. We can't say that. So there's a balance. So we
I guess my question, and I agree, my question is, how are they improving our communications without it outlining what the purpose is for this? I understand we can't stop them, or can we?
We probably need them to come into the city hall and explain what they want us to put on our poles.
I agree, because, you know, in today's world with the difference of communications, it's got to be getting close to borderlining of franchise fees such as the cable company.
Right.
And so that's the questions I would have. Last question I have, underneath the pole attachment fee, on Article 5, page 12, it states, as we were also, I think, all given separately as well, nothing in this agreement prevents either party during its term or future agreements from seeking or agreeing to a franchise agreement between licensee and municipality for present or future services, products sold to licensee customers. What is that from a legalese standpoint, Mr. Law Director? What is that actually telling me?
Right, what I put in there, in fact, that's today's language, in talking to Mr. Winiarski, who has, and I think you guys have a greater knowledge about the technology than a layman would, is that we know what they're going to put on their poles now, but what are they going to put on their poles next year that this agreement may cover? What types of services are we going to be providing to our citizens? And should we be charging them a franchise fee like we do with the cable company? Right now, the law is in flux. Their argument is that the franchise provisions in the Ohio Revised Code do not apply to us because of the technology. You're not able to do that. Well, I think there's some cities in the state that are actually litigating this. And it's nice to have other cities litigate this and at their expense with their experts, etc. But back to your question, if in the future there's services and products that are being sold to off our poles that are not covered by this, and we're allowed to have franchise agreements and fees, then we need to be able to have that protection and be able to say we want a franchise and you need to come to the table.
So should that be defined within the agreement then, what they're currently going to be offering as services?
I don't think the law permits us to have franchise agreements for what they are providing.
Well, I'm not asking for a franchise agreement, but for, let's say the ORC does change down the road where they, depending on the services that they offer, and they give us additional services that might fall within the newly revised code and the franchise fees. You mentioned if it's additional to the fees that they're currently offering when they put up this agreement here, but it does not define what these services are.
Right.
So we won't know what the differences are.
Yeah, but I don't know what to attach to an addendum or a schedule because I don't know what the services are and I don't know how to charge for them.
Right, understood.
Yeah. So
I think from my perspective, I would love to hear what they're doing. Doesn't mean I want to say no to the ordinance.
Right.
But I think it's important for us as a council and the services being provided to the community, what those are.
I think it behooves them to come to the city of Amherst, Ohio from New York or San Francisco to talk to us about that.
I agree. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Councilman Buchbeck. Auditor, could we, you have a question for us?
I have a question. If I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but when they were here last time, they were attaching to the poles to boost for like Verizon and like Sprint and everybody but like AT&T.
Right.
And I think that's what they were attaching to. But, you know, if they're so willing to come up with a new schedule and up the money, I think you're right in line saying that it would behoove us to have them come in and explain again. You know, maybe they're adding AT&T and other people.
Maybe they're adding wireless internet as well. I don't know that.
Right now, they're telling us that the service that they're going to be provided are under these FCC Ohio Revised Code order that do not require franchise agreements.
That's fine. I just like to know what they're doing. That's all.
That's good.
Councilman Winiarski.
Thank you. with Mr. Councilman Bukovacs' concerns, we're going to enter into a relationship where we've already been told once they're just going to hang fibers, and that expanded last. Telecom technology expands in generations. What they're putting up today will provide a service that we may not even know about in the future. And with that, I'd like to visit with them and find out what their long-term plans are. Are we able to charge a fee if someone came in and built a cell tower? Well, if you're putting antennas on poles that provide the same service, are we in a position where we could at least ask them for some money? I think we at least need that question answered. What's their second generation, third generation? Do they plan on trying to take out the local cable company and provide Wi-Fi throughout the city? This is maybe something we want to consider ourselves. I mean, I have no issues with inviting them then in to do business, but it should come at a cost at some point, I believe. And I'd like to know what they plan on doing, and if they're going to be good neighbors and work with us and throw something our way in exchange for doing business in our city, and I think that's very reasonable. And with that, I'd like to ask that maybe we postpone this until we can get a visit from a person in a position to discuss this on behalf of the people that are, be it fiber tech or whatever, large.
We can do Skype on our TV.
Councilman Narski, does that mean we have a motion on the floor to table?
Yeah, yes it is.
And second, to Mr. Bukovac?
Well,
And with
to
discussion.
tell me, yes, that is true. I would like to second.
Would you like to second that with discussion?
No discussion.
Fantastic. All right, we have a motion on the floor to table by Councilman Winarski, seconded by Councilman Bukovac. I guess we have a question, Ms. Whistle.
Mr. Law Director, you and the Safety Services Director worked together on this agreement, and you've made amendments, and the most recent of which is this one that we got tonight. How confident are you at this point that you have addressed the questions that Mr. Winarski says that might come up, and you don't?
Not very confident, no.
Okay.
This is-
Okay,
this is
so
something
this is-
that's
so
very
this is-
specialized,
Okay.
and I think it's
Okay.
appropriate that. And now, can we have them come in the next 6 weeks during, when things are being passed? First, second, third reading, possibly.
Okay. Because
but-
we could actually do what we did on the last,
Sure.
in the last committee meeting where we can send it to the floor. If you change your motion and your second, so that, and if we don't like what we hear, if the guy doesn't show up, doesn't answer all the questions, we can always send it back to committee.
Possible, yeah.
I guess as a member of the committee, I ask that maybe we consider that, but again, that would be up to Mr. Winarski and Mr. Bukovac. I mean, I'm.
Go ahead, Mr. Costello.
I do support looking at it more. There are rules and regulations, laws about us doing our due diligence and not holding them up to prevent them from getting these services and wires hung up in our public right-of-way within a timely manner. I think FCC has something about 45 days. What happens after that, I don't know. So I'm definitely for revisiting this, but I wouldn't want to postpone it too long.
So maybe we should, maybe if they're willing to reconsider, we do that. I mean, we can always withdraw it, and we can always say, hey, forget it when we get on the floor.
2 weeks might not be an issue. You could go ahead and table it, honestly, and if it becomes a problem, we'll visit it then. I'm happy either way.
Just check to see when somebody could come in.
And I can get somebody here, I'm sure, no matter what you do, either next week or in 2 weeks. I'll have a representative here.
I'd say we not table.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Our treasurer, Mr. Ramsey.
I had just in looking over it, if one of the concerns was, about antennas, them attaching cell phone antennas or something of the like on the towers, on the poles, that would be covered under this Appendix A. So there would have to be like a separate writing about what would be, whether or not those would be on there. And my understanding is if that's not signed, then they're not allowed to attach pole-mounted antennas unless this appendix is signed.
And if you notice,
Yeah,
it's
that's
blank.
why, I'm sorry.
And that's why it's blank.
That's why it's a better agreement, I believe, than the first agreement. That's why we decided to change it, so you're right about that. However, I guess, I don't think it really addresses the questions that Chuck has about the specific technology beyond antennas. I mean,
What about on Schedule B, the pole attachment specifications? Is that supposed to contain that information?
I think that's kind of like a appurtenances,
Okay.
and, you know, there's guide wire, there's all kinds of things that they say, well, we need that for natural fiber lines, and that's something different. And that's why there should be some sort of specific conversation as to what exactly they're putting on our poles, so we know, and we can make an intelligent decision. I think the last contract was too vague, and we put an end to it quickly, so.
Just thought maybe that might help.
Just to clarify then, that's Schedule A1, and Schedule B1 allows for expansion of, that they'd like to add. And on this, it's like you said, there's really not, this is just a form, and then does it go to our utilities department and to our building inspector and to you and your...
It would start the safety service director, he would approve their plan, they would send you a real detailed plan with all the poles, locations, I would approve it or not, and the only thing you really cannot approve is safety of the poles. If something is wrong with the pole, it won't withstand the weight, you really cannot disapprove them being within the right of way.
And then we'll let Mr. Pecora follow up, and I'll be with you, Mr. Lenarski.
And I'll be the first to admit this, I've been wavering about the position between the safety service director and discussions with the mayor and others. The way it was worded now is one agreement, and the safety service director can basically approve perpetual presentations or requests by FiberTech versus new additional services being brought back to council, have us look at it again. There's pros and cons to coming back to council, whether it's needed or not, whether or not council needs to be bothered with that. But I like the control. I like to ask the thought of council, them having to come back to council periodically and saying, this is what we're doing now.
How is it written?
And right now, this gives Mark once we approve this, it allows him to approve whatever's presented to him.
And I'm comfortable either way.
Within the parameters, right?
I think that needs to be a discussion point too.
Okay, I have Mr. Councilman Lenarski, Councilman Rousseau. So we'll start.
Just a statement and then a question. The issues in front of us right now, administrations come and go, council people come and go. I don't want to have to tell people in the future, explain that, well, sorry, we didn't work on it harder. Not that we're not working on it hard now, but who knows what's going to come up in the future, and this may not be as important to attend to those attachments and addendums and stuff. I'd like to know what they're up to. I think we deserve an opportunity to play this game with the cards face up. In the past, I have nothing that supports that we have all the information. What direction this is happening? I think it's a fair request to ask them to come. But that statement, I'd also, if my math is right, they come back in 2 weeks. That's 14 days. We can pass this on emergency if we really love what they have to throw in front of us, and it would be law within 21 days. Am I correct? So I like the idea of keeping it in committee, because that it doesn't kick the can down the road, so to speak. It keeps it where it belongs, where there's an open discussion. It's not in front of council for an immediate vote. Committee is a place for discussion, I believe.
Okay, would you like to comment on that before I allow him to withdraw his motion and restate it in the form of...
Yeah, I understand, Mr. Lenarski.
You're not...
I want to stay in committee.
Okay.
And that's fine, I mean, that's fine. My preference would be to send it to the floor, and if the representative wasn't able to come on Monday, then it could come back to council, committee, and which would be the same as tabling it. But I'm comfortable either way.
Okay.
It works out the same way.
Okay. Councilman Lukovac?
Thank you. I like Mr. Renarski's kick the can down the road kind of thing. That was a good description. One of the things we aren't discussing, which I think needs discussion, is what the law director brought up about who has control of amendments, additional equipment, and that's something we haven't even talked about yet. And I think that's the place to do that is actually in committee, not on the floor of council.
When I say control, it's not us versus you, it's us against FiberTech.
I understand. No,
Yeah, but basically, you know, it makes them think about what they're presenting.
In order that I be
Keeps
to
them
infer
honest.
that it was us against you. That's
Right.
not what it was meant to be.
Sure.
But that's something we haven't discussed. And I think that's the place we do that is in committee.
Thank you, Councilman Bufak. I may want to add to that. I'm curious where this huge sum of money of $8.54 for 150 polls or whatever, where that large amount of money is going, because that's big time. I mean, we're looking at, what, a couple $100. But in all seriousness, has it been declared what funds is going to be dropped in? Or is it just going in general fund? Is this being appropriated in the cable fund since it's up on the wires?
We
Or
really haven't visited that.
so it's just going to be dropped into general?
No,
Any revenue, net revenue?
We actually get other fees from the towers over by the police station, and we have a separate fund for those.
And, oh, so there's another account, and
Yes.
that's the fund account you would like to see
That's
this?
probably where we'll end up putting it back into.
Is that something that needs to be written into the ordinance, or is that just a decision on the auditor and the mayor's?
It's by my office.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, thank you. With that, I guess we still have a motion on the floor to table by Mr. Wodarski.
With an invitation to FiberTech or whoever to visit us.
Absolutely. I don't have the number, but we will get that. We'll make sure that that happens. I believe we have a second, Mr. Bukovac. So we'll go to a roll call vote, if you're okay with that. Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Venturin?
Yes.
Ms. Wasil?
Yes.
Mr. Janik? Yes. Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. The A-15-15 has been tabled. I'll entertain a motion.
That's mine.
Beautiful.
To adjourn.
Mr. Winarski, a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Bukovac. The tandem is once again bring the two. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We adjourn at 8:14.
Our town, our TV. Amherst City Cable.